is Wayne Aker. I'm a Drupal developer and the creator of DrupalTutor.com, where I sell or offer Drupal training courses for all levels, from beginners through advanced. So, all right. So on Drupal Tutor Live, on this live stream is just me programming the new version of DrupalTutor.com, which is a fairly complex Drupal 9 and soon to be Drupal 10 website. And so you're just seeing me build out all the features. So it's a little bit different than the classes because I'm doing it live. I do prepare a little bit ahead of time, kind of try to figure out what I'm going to do, but it's not quite as polished as sort of the courses. However, I think there's some benefit that you might get, hopefully, in watching how a Drupal developer, professional Drupal developer, would approach implementing certain functionality on a complex Drupal site like this one. Okay, so before we begin, if you are not subscribed for updates, you should go to DrupalTutor.com/live. You can put in your email address, and then I'll send you an email every week, so you'll know what I plan to work on that week, and so you can decide if that's interesting to you and you want to tune in live. The benefit of tuning in live is the comments are open here on YouTube, so if you have a question as we go through, you can post the question and I'll answer it in real time. So you can sign up there to get the emails every week. And also all of the previous episodes are available to watch there. So this is actually, I think this is episode 10. So we have several hours of previous streams up there where I built out the basics of the site, did migration, and created some custom entity types for storing the course session and registration information. So today, we are going to build a system for sending emails to students on a relative schedule based on when their class starts. So when somebody takes a course at takes a class at DrupalTutor.com, they get like a weekly automated email, like it's sort of a templated email that I've already sort of written. And it just reminds them every week that they should be going in and where they should be in the course and what they're going to get in this week's lesson. Even though they can go faster or slower, they don't have to go 1 week at a time. But they get this to sort of every week. And so I actually have a system, custom code that already does that, but it only works with emails. And actually there's several other scheduled behaviors that I need to do relative to when a student takes a class. For example, I need to create a development environment for them. I need to create, and then eventually I need to delete that development environment. And so, there's some other things that I think I might like to do as well. And so I want to create a system that's a little bit more generic than what I have on the current site. So I'm just going to start from scratch. And what we're building is a system to execute actions on a relative interval based on some time that's set on a related entity in the system. For example, like the start date of this class. And so that is what we're going to build. And emails will be one thing that they will do. Now, before I begin, I should mention that there is a module. If you just want to do emails and with the scheduling, sort of like relative scheduling, there is actually a module that does this. And I'll just give it a quick shout out because I think it's probably good. I haven't used it myself, although I have read through some of the source code. It's called the scheduled message module. And it basically does this thing where it's a relative date to some other date in the system. It will send an email, and it uses the email sending is handled by a module called Easy Email, which is a module that I wrote, which allows you to send templated messages, though it doesn't handle anything about dates or anything like that. It's just low level sort of sending of messages. If all I wanted to do was send emails, I'm pretty sure that this module would work for me, but I want to be able to do these other things. So I'm going to build a new module, but I did look at the source code for this module. And so I took some inspiration from that. So some of the things we'll be doing would inspired by this module, let's say, but I'm going to expand the concept a little bit, though our emails will still be sent with easy email when we get to that point. All right. So let's see. Oh, so in the process of doing this, I will be showing how to create a plugin system for Drupal. And the reason why, so a plugin system, you would create a plugin system. If you've written other Drupal modules, then you might have implemented plugins before, plugin systems that already exist. Like if you created a custom block, or even when we created those custom entities on the previous week, there's custom entity types. We had like an annotation and that declared everything about that entity type to the system. And you do the same thing. Like if you create a custom block in code, you have an annotation that declares it. That's an implementation of a plugin system that already exists in the case of like either the entity type system or the block system. So today we're going to be creating our own plugin type system. And that's because this is something that doesn't exist in core, this whole scheduled actions system that we're going to be creating. Now, the reason we're going to do it as a plugin system is we have a general concept like things should happen at a particular time that I will schedule on a relative date. But different things should happen. It's not always going to be sending an email. And I'd like the thing that happens, the behavior, to be pluggable so that you could say, okay, I got the schedule and this is sending an email. I got the schedule, this is doing hosting. And so that plugin system is going to take the implementation details of what happens at this time and encapsulate it so that when we want to create a new one, a new thing that can be scheduled, we will just implement the plugin, just like we did when we created a new entity type and it was basically one file with an annotation. That's what we're going to do in order to implement new behaviors that can be scheduled. So that's why we're going to create a plugin system to do this so that it's easily reusable and extensible. Okay, so this is a fairly complex system. I decided I was going to do this on the live stream, and then as I started thinking about it, I had actually a hard time kind of wrapping my head around it. There are two basic parts, though, I think. There are going to be scheduled actions, and that's what I'm calling them. These are going to be specific things that will happen at specific times with the times already resolved. So they're not going to be relative times. Okay, these are sort of like queued up sort of things. And the reason I don't want to try to do the date computation live. I think it'll be better to sort of pre-compute them and then execute them. Will be if you want to check like what's going to send out tomorrow, then it would be nice to be able to just create a view and list them all out. And also if you want to say like what fired yesterday, it would be nice to be able to see the history. And so by creating these entity records of the actual thing that occurred, then we can do both of those. So I think that will be useful. So and then there will be sort of another level that sits before that will create those scheduled actions based on whatever this relative time date is, and it will need to create or delete or update those scheduled action records as needed based on changes to the date or changes to the intervals. So that's how I think I'm going to set it up. I haven't actually written this code yet, so we may find that doesn't work very well, but that's where we're going to start with. So today I'm going to work on the first part, which is the simpler part. So that is just creating the scheduled actions, and then we're going to build the plugin system so those scheduled actions can do different things when they fire at their particular time. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to say about it. Let's dig in then. Okay. So, oh, I just realized that I thought I was showing my screen, but I wasn't showing my screen. Sorry. This is the scheduled message module. I put it on my screen and then I forgot to show it. But yeah, scheduled message module available on Drupal.org. All right. So to store the first thing we're going to need to do is be able to store a scheduled action. So like send this email at, March 30th, 3:15 p.m. So we're going to need a custom entity for that. Now, the last 2 weeks, we've created several custom entities. So I'll go kind of quick through this. These are going to be, if you want more detail about creating custom entities and understand a bit more about it, watch 2 episodes ago. I think I went through it in a lot more granular detail and did a lot more explanation. Okay, so we're going to need a custom entity to store the scheduled actions. It's going to be a content entity because we're going to be creating a lot of them. This is not a configuration entity. Every email that's scheduled is going to have one of these, for example. And so let's get started. So we can use Drush to create the content entity. So Drush generate, actually we need to generate the module first. Drush gen module. So this module, I'm going to call it scheduled actions. Okay. Okay, we'll just put that in. It doesn't really matter. Package, we can leave it as custom. All right, dependencies. So the only dependency is probably, I don't know if we have any dependencies, actually. Let's just leave that blank for now. Okay, do we need a module file? Probably we will at some point. So I'm going to say yes. Do we need an install file? No. We don't need a libraries right now. We can go ahead and create, we will end up with the permissions when we add the entity type. I don't need an event subscriber or a block plugin or a controller or a settings form. Okay, so that creates the module. And now let's create the entity type. So Drush gen entity content. And, oh, hold on. I think I need to enable the module before it shows up in the wizard there. Okay, so now if I generate this, I can type scheduled, scheduled actions. The entity type label will be scheduled action. And that should be I think that should be the type ID. Entity base path. That's fine for now. I don't think that the base path is probably not that important for these particular entities. They're not really intended to be seen on the a view page. Make the entity type fieldable. Yes, this is going to be important that they're fieldable because different types of, and that they have bundles actually, because we're going to end up with different ones. There's going to be like send an email is going to be one type of scheduled action, and create hosting account is going to be another one. So we do want it to be fieldable. We do want it to be revisionable because that's what's going to show us the history, like if it triggers and changes status. Translatable, I don't think is important here. but it should have a bundle. It doesn't really need a canonical page. And CRUD permissions, I mean, sure. Does it need a label base field? No. A status base field? Does need a status base field, but not the one it's going to add if I say yes, which is a Boolean. We're going to have 3 statuses, pending, queued, and completed, because eventually I want these to be executed by the Drupal queue system. I don't know that we're going to get there today, but like eventually that's what I'd like. So I want 3 statuses. So I'm going to say no. We can go ahead and have the created and changed base fields, though. Author base field. I mean, I suppose we can have it. It's not really necessary, but maybe if somebody was using this and made things manually, they'd want to track who created it. Description base field, no, we don't need that. We don't need any REST configuration. Okay. So there's that. Let's, because I created that on the server, let me download those files. Okay, now I've got them here in my development environment. And the first thing we should do is fix the base fields, because we're going to need some different base fields. So let's just look through this entity annotation here and see if there's anything we need to update. I think in general this looks fine so far. Yeah, I think that's okay. All right, so let's look at the base fields. So we have the author field, that's fine. We have the created field and the changed field. Okay, so there's a couple other things we need to add, which is, let's add the status field and the scheduled date field, because everything is going to have, actually, is there, oh, so we have a field called bundle as well, which I guess is fine. I might have called it type, but I guess it doesn't, by default, it just calls it bundle. Okay, that's fine. So I've got some examples, I think, when I created from before. So I'm just going to, in the interest of time, find that and copy that in. Okay, so here's an example of a status field with 3 possible statuses. So let's bring that over. So the status field, it's an integer, it's required. These are going to be pending, queued, and completed. And 0, 1, 2 is fine, because it doesn't really matter the numbers, just as long as we know what they mean in our code. And then, oh, we need the scheduled date. So I think in the, in the registration, maybe we had an example date, like a start date. Yeah. So except it's not going to be start date. I'm going to call this the scheduled date, but it's a date time. And in this case, I do want it to include a time, not just a date. So I think that the date time type needs to be date time. I did show you in those previous episodes about how you could figure out what the settings are for any one of these fields by exporting some configuration to figure that out. Okay, so I got the scheduled date, I got the type, which is the bundle, that's already in there, and the status. Okay, I think that's it. The rest of the fields will be dependent on the type of scheduled action it is. For example, we may need the email address for when we send the email. Okay. We do need to do one thing in addition to this, which is our scheduled action type. So this is a configuration entity that defines the bundle. We are going to want another field in here. So normally by default, these just have an ID and a label, and this allows you to create different bundle types. But our bundle types are going to need one more setting, which is when I define a type, that should also define what the behavior of that type is, whether it is sending an email, creating a hosting, whatever the plugin implementation that implements its behavior, that should also be defined in the type, I think, because we don't want to be defining that on every individual action, because otherwise there's not a whole lot of reason for there to be different bundles. So that's really tied to the bundle type, or the type of the scheduled action. So I am going to add another field to the type called behavior. Okay, and this is going to be a string that's going to be the ID of, it's going to eventually be the ID of the plugin that implements the behavior that this type should do. So all right, so we did not configure, or sorry, did we not customize the configuration entities last time and in any of the previous videos? So all you have to do is just add another field right here, and what you should also go into config schema, and here it maps out sort of the data types, and so we should add another one in here that is so that the config system knows what type of a value this is. We did put it here in the PHP comments, but the config system can't read that. So we have a new field here called behavior. It is of type string, and we can give it a label. The label only allows it to be translated if you wanted to have configuration translations, which we won't be doing, but you should do this so that it could be translated by somebody else. So this is, I'll just call it behavior. Okay, so I need to reinstall this module. It's probably going to give me an error saying that it can't uninstall this entity type. Oh, maybe because I hadn't cleared caches yet, so it didn't see the entity type. So now with this, I think I can re-enable it, and it should install this entity type, create the tables for it and everything. All right, so let's see if I refresh. By default, it should have ended up under structure, which is fine for now as far as the setup stuff. So we have, scheduled action types. And so if we create an action type, you'll see we have label here. And so we could create something like email and save it. And then we can add fields to this. Now, the thing is, you notice it didn't prompt us for behavior. So I'm not going to get into the fields just yet because we're probably going to have to delete this. because we really want to be able to specify that behavior right here. So let's fix that. So let's go to, if we go here under the form folder under source, Drush has created a scheduled action type form. This is the form right here that we're seeing. So if we look here you can see the label field and then the ID field, which is what creates this little automated part right here. That creates it from the label, the machine name from the label. And so we want to add another form element here. Behavior. And let's just put something simple in right now. This is not how it's going to eventually work, but we'll just do like type, select, options are, and let's just make up some options for right now. Email. And like hosting, create. And this needs to be required. And it needs a label. Okay. So now let's go back and refresh this. And you'll see we have this behavior. We can set it and let's see. Yeah, we have to add. So there's a save function here. We're going to have to add the entity type set behavior. I mean, we can trim it. I don't know why it would be. I don't know why this would need to be trimmed. Maybe those other ones need to. This is not going to need to be trimmed because it's coming from a drop-down box. So I'm just going to say, oh, wait, hold on. What am I looking at here? Oh, because it's already set the entity. Actually, let's just dump out because has it already done it? I always get confused on this part. Or do I because I've got the form state here. I don't really understand why it's sort of setting it out of itself. It's just trimming it. That's all it's doing. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't really know why it's trimming it there. Let's just save this and see what happens. So this dump, actually the behavior is there. So I think there's something in the base class. So this comes from the bundle entity form base. I think it must already copy all of the values based on their form element over there. So actually, I think maybe I don't have to do anything. I think it just maybe works. One thing I do need to do is put a default value here. So for the form, which should be entity type. Is it just entity type behavior? No. I don't know if config entities have a get. Do they? No. Let's just put it in there. You can see it doesn't like it though. PHP Storm doesn't like it, but because it has protected visibility. So, so maybe I need to go back in here into this class here and our label and ID defined in the base class somewhere. Config entity base maybe. Sorry, this is a little bit of a detour. I'm just trying to make sure I understand this. Oh, so there is a get. Okay. So PHP Storm didn't automatically didn't auto complete it, but there is a get. Okay. So all we have to do is let's try that. So if I click this now, let's see. Let's dump out the entity type just to see if it's even in there, because I'm not sure if did it not save or did I not do it? No, it did not save. Okay. Well, I mean, we can do. It didn't seem like I needed to do this, but I certainly can save it from the form state. That's normal. And then it gets saved right here, so that should be good. So let's try this again. And let's just dump out the... Strange. Just going to double check to see if it's actually in the configuration. So this is a config entity, so we can go to configuration synchronization and go to export single item. And then we want to find a scheduled action type email. And let's just see. Yeah, it didn't save the behavior. So what? So it's in the schema. Oh, maybe I need it here. Well, for config export, maybe I need it here. This is in the annotation in the config entity type class. Let's just refresh this and see if that causes it to export. So maybe it's there, maybe it just didn't. Nope. Okay, gonna have to phone a friend here. I've done this before, so let's. I think I've done this in. Easy email. So let's download easy email because we're going to need that anyway. And look at how I did it before, because clearly I'm just missing something stupid here. Actually, this might not be the right. Is this? That's actually not the one I want. I think it's the 2.0 series that I want. Let me just make sure. 2.1. Okay. Okay, Symphony Mailer, did it remove? Should remove Swift Mailer and stuff, but it doesn't look like it did that, but that's okay. All right, so let's download this and let me just look at how the types are set up in here. I think we've got it mostly correct, but clearly I'm missing one small thing. So here we've got the easy email type. Yeah, config export. This has all of the things that it has, and they're all just listed in here. There is a constructor, but I don't think that's necessary. There are getters and setters in here, but I don't think that, again, I don't think that's actually required in order for it to store. So let me look at the form. Easy email type form. So then here's all the form is quite complex on this, so we'll skip that. Let's go down to save. Yeah, I basically do nothing. Oh, no, here I am. Here, wait. Okay, so it looks like there's a difference if it's new. Like I don't do anything if it's new, and if it isn't new, then I have to set it. That's weird. But, okay. I mean, it seems like I could just set it every time. Just going to dump out the entity type. Try this one more time here. I mean, it's definitely set, so I don't understand why it's not. Why doesn't it then come out? Oh, no, there it is. Okay, I have no idea why that worked now. Does it work now if I go back to edit? Yes. Okay, so now it's stored the value. Okay, so I think I had it right. I guess this line was necessary. So I was correct that we did need to set that. And maybe I just, after that, I didn't do things in the right order to update it. Okay, so we're setting the behavior. We can store that. That's good. So at this point, we could, for example, we should be able to like, no, not here, under scheduled actions, we could create a scheduled action. It would be of type email because there's only one. And I have the, oh wait, I think I need maybe to bring the scheduled date field up here. I don't really care about authored on or authored. What I care about are the scheduled date and the status. So let's just make sure these are working. So if we go scheduled actions, yeah, we could create something here with a status. That looks fine. All right. So we can now create these entities. I won't do that yet because we're probably going to have to reinstall this module in a moment. Because we're ready now, I think, for the plugin system. So I just hard coded that before to say email and hosting as hosting create as two types. Oh, there is one thing actually I should do before, which is this should not be editable if once you create it. You should only be able to, because you can't really change it after the fact. You could really screw up like other things in the system. So you should only be able to define this at the beginning. So I think it needs to be like disabled if entity type is new if it's not new. Yeah, so now you can do it at the beginning, but once you do it, it's locked down. And you'd have to delete this type and create a new one if you wanted to change the behavior. All right. So that basically works. The thing is, these behaviors are just two made up strings. We need them to actually be tied to the behavior that they will do. So that's where we're going to need the plugin system. So the plugin system is going to define the options that will go here. Every implementation of the plugin will be one of the options. So we can use Drush to do this, to generate a plugin system for us. I don't remember the exact command, so let's just let's go through here. I think it's like a plugin manager or something. Yeah, these other ones are generating implementations of specific plugins, but a plugin manager is a whole new plugin system, which is plugin type, which is what we want. Drush plugin manager. This will go in scheduled actions. The plugin type will be scheduled action behavior. We'll use annotations for this. It is possible to use YAML files and hooks to generate plugin types, but I think the second one and the third one should be used sparingly. Like hooks should probably never be used. Those are just for older code that was ported from like Drupal 7. The YAML files can make sense. There are some opportunities for that. If you have something where you just need to declare values, but there's no actual code or logic that needs to execute, then YAML files can work. But for most plugins, you're going to want an annotation because you both have to declare the existence of this plugin implementation and you have some code that needs to execute as part of it. And annotation allows you to put that in one file, the class file. So annotation is the best choice for most plugins. Plugin types, I should say. Okay, so that spit out a bunch of new files. So let's download those files. Okay, so just running through the files that were created so we can see what they do. It created a services file. Services file just declared this plugin, the scheduled action behavior plugin manager service. And then it says that by having it be a default plugin manager as the parent, that basically tells Drupal this is a plugin manager system. It also defined this class as scheduled action behavior plugin manager. And so I highly recommend using Drush to generate this because this file is kind of complex. It extends default plugin manager, and then it has this constructor with a lot of stuff in it. And if you try to do this by hand, it's easy to make mistakes here with all of the different things that get passed in, and then the things that get declared sort of in here. What's happening here is it's calling the parent constructor. This file is what subdirectory of the plugin, or I guess of the source folder, should implementations of this plugin be put in. So typically those are in /plugin/something. And so this is where this defines what that is. So this is saying all plugin implementations should be in plugin/scheduled action behavior. I'm actually going to change this because I think we might need a second plugin system when we get to that interval calculation bit. I'm not sure about that part yet, but we might. And so there might be more than one type of plugin defined by this module. So I'm going to have it in plugin, scheduled action, and then behavior for all the behavior plugins. And then if we need another one, it'll be in another subfolder of scheduled action. So I'll change that there. Then namespaces and module handler just pass through from the constructor. and for the most part, these are all the same for any plugin type you're going to create. Plugin interface. So this is the interface that defines, this is the interface for implementations of this plugin. So every implementation of the plugin must implement the methods that are defined in that interface. The annotation name, this is the class, and we'll look at it in a moment, that declares the annotation, or defines the annotation for this plugin, because you can say what keys you need in your annotation, and that's defined in this class. We'll look at those in a second. And you can define what the alter hook is, and something about the cache backend. I guess, yeah, because implementations of a plugin are cached, and so I've never needed to customize this, so I can't tell you exactly what you would do here, but that's what that does. Okay, so that defines the plugin system. Then let's see. We have the scheduled action behavior interface. So this is the interface for all implementations. And currently it only says that it has to have a label. That's it. And then there is also scheduled action behavior plugin base. This is a base class that implementations of this plugin could extend in order to reuse some functionality that's common. So the main thing here currently is that the plugin definition is, which we'll see in a moment in the annotation, it has a label key. And so this will return the label from that plugin in it, from the annotation. It'll return that as part of for the label method. That's what we're seeing here. And that annotation is defined here. So the annotation is, I think it only has, well, it's got 3 things in it. It's got the ID title, is it? I think actually this could be a mistake. Yeah, it says that the plugin definition is going to include label, and then over here it uses title. I think this is a mistake. I think that this should be a label. I think it's got to match because it's basically, this is defining what those keys are in the annotation. So I think this should be label. And then description. Now, I don't think, I mean, we could have a description, but I don't know that, well, I'll leave it in here, but I don't know that a description is really necessary. An ID and a label are going to be needed though, because we're going to need, that's basically what's going to end up in the select box. The ID is going to be the key, and what we see here in the select box is going to be the label. So we're definitely going to need those 2 things. Description, I don't know where it would show up, but I'll leave it in there for now. And then I think it creates a, yeah, this, the Drush plugin also creates an example implementation. So you can see how this would be used. So you'll notice it's inputted in plugin, scheduled action behavior. We changed this. So I'm going to rename, can I actually no. So I'll make this scheduled action, and then we need a new directory under it, behavior. And then I'll move foo into there. And we'll need to change the namespace here. All right. So, okay. So here is an implementation of the, of our plugin type, our scheduled action behavior. You can see it's got an annotation. The annotation is labeled scheduled action behavior. That comes from the class name that this annotation has over here, scheduled action behavior. And then it has ID, label, and description, which are the 3 keys. Now that I've corrected the mistake here, the 3 keys that are shown in this annotation. So that's how we would know what this is. I mean, that's useful. Like if you're ever needing to implement a plugin that you didn't write, but you don't know what the keys are supposed to be, if you can find the annotation, then you can see what the keys are supposed to be, because it should have everything listed in there. And so, and you can see this extends scheduled action behavior plugin base, but it doesn't do anything. So I think from here, let's make an email implementation, and then let's add that to the form, so that when we create them, it's actually pulling them dynamically from the implementations, from the plugin implementations. Now, I know they don't do anything yet, but let's at least get it so it pulls them dynamically rather than being hard-coded into the form. So I'll create a new class under here. I will just call it, maybe I'll call it easy email, because it is going to send an easy email specifically. It's not going to send other kinds of Drupal email, which are possible straight from Drupal core. So, all right, so we create that. And this should extend from scheduled action behavior plugin base. And we need to have the annotations. So I'll just start by copying the foo annotation over. And we can say like sends an easy email. So we need a unique ID. We can use easy email. The translation, the label will be easy email. And the description, I'll just put easy email, or how about sends an easy email. Again, I don't know where that's going to be displayed, so we probably don't really need it, but. All right, so that should be enough to declare it. So let's go back to our form. And where we have it hard-coded, let's look these up dynamically. Now, before we do that, because email is what we have here, and that one's not going to exist anymore, I'm going to delete the scheduled action type just so we don't have something in there with invalid data. And now we need to replace this options with the options from the plugin manager. So I'm going to have to look back. I got some other example code that I pulled up for another time I did this, because I don't remember right off the top of my head how to do this. Okay, it's very easy. All right, so we need to have one of our plugin managers classes here. It is a service though, so, and this is a form class, so we can do protected behavior plugin manager. And this will be this is a variable of type scheduled action behavior plugin manager. And we'll need to add a constructor. And then we need to override the create method. So that we can basically do dependency injection here. So we'll call return new static container get, and then we need the service ID, which is this plugin.manager scheduled action behavior. All right, so this will call the constructor, which will set the behavior plugin manager from this service. And then down here, where we have the behaviors, we will say like behavior options. We'll just start with an empty array. Then we will say the plugin definitions are in this behavior plugin manager get definitions. So we can loop through those and add them to the behavior options. And this is actually just this is an array of just the data that came straight from the annotation. So it just has like ID label description. It doesn't have anything else, as far as I know. So we can, and they're keyed by the ID. So we can do something like key equals definition label. Okay, so this should create a key values and that we need for options for select. So let's clear our caches and see if Drupal can pick up this new plugin system and our new plugins. So if we come back here and refresh, nothing here, but let's go to scheduled action type. And if we look in behavior, you'll see we have easy email and foo. All right, so those are no longer hard coded. Those are coming from the definitions of the plugins. So let's create one easy email with behavior easy email, and we'll save it. And we'll just double check this works. If we edit it, we shouldn't be able to change that. Perfect. Okay, so now we can define the type, and we can define what the behavior for that type is. Now we need to, we can also store one of these. So let's add a field to it. So we'll add a field like an email address field. And we're not at the automated stage. This is still going to be sort of manual, but we're working our way there. So I'll just say like email. Actually, that should be a required field. And then the other thing maybe is we need an easy email template, because if we're going to create it, this scheduled action is like send this templated email to this address at this time. That's what a scheduled action should do. So we need a reference to something else, and I'll call this template. It is a, oh, I haven't enabled. Okay. I'll just save this. I'm gonna have to delete this one. I need to enable easy email so that I have the easy email type or easy email template as a possible option there. So drush in easy email, because I've already put it in here with Composer a few minutes ago. All right, now I should be able to create the field. It's a reference field to other, called template. And it is an email template. It is also required. Okay, so before I can actually create one of these, I'm going to have to create an email template because I haven't created any of those either. So let's just create a test one. Okay, so the we'll say so we'll give it a subject and just some let's just put some test text in there. I think that should be enough. So now we have a template. So now we could create a scheduled action that says, because I deleted that, I gotta go fix the form display for this because I need the scheduled date and the status, but I don't need authored on or author. So let's get those hidden. So now I'll create the scheduled action and I will say it happens today, and I'm just going to put 4 p.m. because that's the time right now. Or I'm hoping in the next 20 or 30 minutes, we'll be able to execute this and have it send. So I want to put it sometime in the past. It'll be pending. The email that we're going to send is the test. Oh no, sorry, the email. This is the email address. So we'll send it to me. This will be captured by the DevStack system anyway. And then the template is test. All right, so we have that scheduled actions in the system. So now we need something that would periodically check to see if there are any scheduled actions that need to occur and then do them, run them, execute them. So I think we can do that right now, at least. We're going to make it a little more complex later, but let's create a drush command that we can run just so we can do it a bunch of times and have it be pretty simple to retest. So I think we may have already created a drush command in one of these previous episodes. I don't remember, but you can do this with drush. It's drushgen. I think it's DCF drush command file. And I'll put it in scheduled actions. All right, and I'm gonna have to download those files again because I created it on the server. All right, and now I have I created this drush services, which defined my command file. And that is here. And it has a couple example commands in it, which we don't need the second one. Let's just delete it. And then we can maybe edit this first one. So I'm just going to call this one test. And the command will be scheduled actions test. It won't take any arguments. Eventually we'll get rid of this one because we'll have like real, we may have a drush command, but we'll do it for real. Like once we get more of the real system built. All right, so let's just make sure that that works. I'll clear caches. I should be able to run this command now and just have it print out achievement unlocked. Okay, so that works. So now I need this to actually do something. So the thing I needed to do is I needed to get the get any scheduled actions that have a scheduled date now or in the past that are pending. And then I need to execute them. So I could code that right here into the drush command, but actually I'm going to need to be able to, I want to be able to do that other places, not just in drush. So really that seems like we already have a service, the plugin manager that, actually, I don't know. Maybe there's the plugin manager the right place to put it. maybe not. Maybe we should have another service actually that sort of, because the plugin manager is managing the plugin system, but I don't know that it should manage querying like other stuff, querying the actual entities. So let's just put it here for now, and then maybe we'll move it into another service. So since I won't do dependency injection here because I know we're probably going to move this later. So entity get anytime manager, get storage, scheduled action, get query. So this is an entity query. We will query for the condition is scheduled date. And let's see. So I need so we'll create a new datetime object. And then we'll need to format that. And there's actually a constant that has the format for you. It is datetime interface. No, datetime item interface. Datetime storage format. That is the format that these dates should be in. And then we should be able to just pass it the operator less than or equal to. Okay, so we're looking for scheduled dates that are, we're looking for scheduled actions with scheduled dates less than or equal to now. And also the status should be pending, which was 0. We probably should add a constant for that. I'll come back and do that at some point if we have time. I want to see how far we can get, see if we can send an actual email today. So we'll just leave it at 0 for now, which was the value we defined for pending. And then, yeah, so we're looking for anything that's pending that has an older scheduled date than now. So we'll look at the results. And then for each of the results, this will be like a scheduled actions. It'll be their ID value. So we're going to need this storage thing down here to load it. I just want to see if I can load it first. Scheduled action. This should be the entity. Load by the action ID. And let's just print out, because we're in Drush, we have to be careful. You can't just dump the whole thing with var dump because it'll recurse and do like a bunch of stuff. So let's just dump out the ID here, but this will tell us if we actually were able to successfully load it, and that our query is correct. Looks like it's not. So we should be actually, we could, yeah, so it's not getting any results. So, oh, wait, now needs to be greater than or equal to, right? Because the date is in the past. So now is greater than that. Oh, wait, no, that's right. No, I had it right before. It should be less than, because we're saying the scheduled date as compared to this should be less than or equal to. That should be correct. Let's just make sure that what we're getting here is there could be some time zone issue. So let me just, doesn't seem like it. Oh, yes, there is a time zone issue because it stores in UTC in the database. So this needs new date time zone. The stream is basically all about date math. But so there's a date time item interface storage time zone. It's UTC, but there is a constant for it, so we should use that. Okay. Yes. Okay, so now it gives me the time in UTC time, and now you see it finds a result. So, okay, so we have the right results. Now, so we found the right scheduled action, but now we need to execute this action. So, trying to think how the best way to do this is. Because I think we need to get the plugin class for this plugin ID. So why don't we just have, and again, I'll skip the dependency injection right here, but let's have the behavior plugin manager here. And this will just be Drupal service. And then what was that service ID? And just so we can autocomplete, I'll put this in. All right. So now we have that. So we could, the question is, how do we get, we need to get the plugin ID, which is set on the type. So if I do like scheduled action, I can do bundle, but that's just going to give me the string. Okay, so that gives me this easy email, which is both, but that's giving me just the type name, which is not necessarily the same as the plugin name. I should have probably named them differently so that was more obvious. But that is not the behavior plugins ID. So I also need to, and there's no way to get the bundle class, right? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So we can load that, though, by having scheduled action type storage, which is just the same thing, only for scheduled action type. And so we can have the type will be scheduled action type storage load scheduled action bundle. Let's see. And if we have the type, I think at that point we can do like get behavior. Okay, it still says easy email, but that's correct now because that's actually the behavior we want. And so now we want to load, because that behavior of what should I do should be defined in the plugin implementation class. So there should be a method in here that tells this class how to execute this. So we're going to need something like public function execute, and it's going to need a scheduled action interface. right? And then it'll read whatever it needs to read from that action and do whatever it needs to do. But this, in order for this to work consistently, this should be in all the plugin implementations, and it should be in the interface that defines this. All right. Actually, it'll return probably nothing because we can't be sure that there's necessarily anything to return. All right. Now, what I have to remember here, go back to our drush file. So we have the type, we have the behavior. Now I have to ask the plugin manager to give me the plugin class. And I may need to look back at my okay. So the plugin is behavior plugin manager is there. Create instance. This is built into the base class that was extended by the scheduled action behavior plugin manager. And this should be type get behavior. So now we have the plugin class. This plugin class will be of type scheduled action behavior interface. So now I could call plugin execute on the scheduled action. And just to see if it works, we'll go back up here to easy email. And I'll just put a var dump in here to figure out if we made it all the way to this function. Hey, okay. So now all we need to do is take in this function, sorry, in this class, and in this method, we need to encapsulate sending an email. So now I got to remember how to programmatically send an email with easy email. So we will need an email handler. Easy email. There was an easy email handler. Can't remember what the service. Oh, maybe it's just email handler. Email handler interface from easy email. That's what we need. This is a service that is available that can send a templated email. So we need to inject that into here. And because this is a plugin, we have to implement container factory plugin interface. This forces us to implement the create method. And let's see, I think I might need to look at my previous examples because I think we have to call parent construct with all these other. Okay, so it needs configuration, plugin ID, and plugin definition. So it doesn't need container, but it needs the other ones. Okay. Yeah, because container we need because then we can. Okay, and then so this creates an instance. We will eventually return this instance, but we need to set the email handler from this service. So let's create a getter and setter for email handler. And then I should be able to call instance set email handler container get, and then I need the service ID, which I think is just easy email.handler, but let me double check. Easy email.handler. All right, so why is this? Oh, this needs to be parent create, maybe? No. Oh, maybe this needs to be new static. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we create a new one of this class using the constructor from the base class, which takes these 3 parameters. Then we call this method to set the easy email handler, and we return it from the create function. Okay. So yeah. So then down here, trying to remember how to make an email. Let's see this email handler. Oh, there's a create email function. Very helpful of me. So but I need to know what the values are. So if I look at easy email and look at its base, where's its base fields? Okay, so I can set the recipient address, and somewhere I have to set the type. I think maybe it's type or bundle. I think it's type. Yeah, type. Okay. So we'll create a new email of type, and this comes from the action. The field name for this is field email. And the recipient address, a string, or is it I think it's actually could be multiple. It's a string, but the cardinality is unlimited. So we'll make it an array action get field. Oh, I think this was field email, and the other one was field template. Let's see if this works. Var dump email get recipient addresses. Let's just print something out and see. So if it works, my email address should pop out there if it's actually working. No, it's breaking. Okay. So what am I missing? Something. Let's double check that these are both correct. Because maybe the type is, maybe that field template is wrong or something. Let's see. Yeah, field template is not the right thing. What is that field called? Oh, it's not value. It's field template target ID, because it's an entity reference. Yeah, okay. So that's the template ID for the easy email. Okay, I think it should work now. So put that to target ID. And then now let's see if it can create that email and then return the addresses from it. Yes, it did. Here's the addresses it returned. Okay, so then I think this email handler, send email. Okay, it was slower. Something happened. Let's check the sent emails. Hey, there's an email here that has the right thing. It is addressed to me, and it has the test email template, so it's working. Now, the thing is, we didn't do anything to change the status. So if I run this again, it'll send me another one. Okay, so we also want to, once we execute this, we want to mark it as completed. The only question is, who should mark it as completed? I think the plugin maybe shouldn't be the one to mark it as completed. Eventually, we're going to have a queue system in here, and it's probably what should do it. But for right now, I'm just going to do it because we're almost out of time here for today. So we'll make it more sophisticated in the next round. So we need to say action set status and completed was 2. Save. So now if I run this, it should run it one more time, right? I got a third one, but if I run it again, it was faster, and there's not a fourth one. So it's scheduled. And let's just test one more thing here, which is if I schedule something in the future, it shouldn't run. So if I tell it to do it like tomorrow at 4 p.m., and let's clear these out just so we make sure we see it if it comes through. If I run the drush command again, it should not send me anything. Okay, but the first time I ran that drush command after 4 p.m. tomorrow, it would send it to me. All right, so we have the basics of this. So, and again, just to wrap up, the benefits of this plugin system is now we have what does it mean to trigger this action at this date that is encapsulated in this one file, right? This is the only file in the whole system that knows about sending emails. I mean, other than easy email system. So the rest of our scheduling stuff is in one area in the plugin manager and that system, and actually sending an email is here. And so this allows us to encapsulate that functionality. So when we want to have, like, again, create a hosting account, it'll just be right here. It won't be mixed in with all the other scheduling stuff. So this is a really clean way to do this. And so we'll continue this next week. There's a lot we can do. I'm going to, next week, we'll clean this up. I want to add the queue system in because I'd like to queue these actions because maybe there would be a lot of them that would need to fire at the same time. So I'd like to put that into the queue system. So next week we'll learn about how to use the Drupal queue system. And then we will move to doing the relative date stuff. All right, so thanks again for joining. Just one quick reminder that you can sign up for email updates at DrupalTutor.com/live, and that's also where you can see all of the past episodes. And thanks again for watching, and I hope you join me again next week.